Oh, hello there. Yes, well, good grief, that was a big news story, wasn't it, yesterday? Yeah. There was that other big news story yesterday, yeah. But I'm not going to go with those, obviously not. That's not what I do, is it? Anyway, today I want to talk about the media, because there was actually a media thing yesterday, which I'm going to keep my eye on because it won't happen. Anyway, it's been suggested by, I don't know, some daring lefty in the Labour Party that maybe the concept of MPs having their own shows and interviewing their relatives isn't such a good idea. So, for example, GB News was upset about this yesterday. You get Lee Anderson, of course. He has his own show where he invites mostly his mates on, and you do get token left-wingers on his show, but they're never as left-wing as I am, oddly enough. Yes, and here we go. Lee Anderson vows he won't be silenced as Labour threatens GB Newsman. No, he won't be silenced because he'll just go on as guest, won't he, eh? Anyway, luckily, of course, for us, that of course Lee is just a one-off in terms of reform. No, of course he isn't. Of course, because there's Nigel Farage, isn't he? Who's the leader of the Reform Party, who has his own show where he gets paid, I don't know, a very, very, very substantial amount of money. But according to him, he's got a lot of overheads. Yeah, it can't be a chauffeur-driven car because that's paid for by other people, isn't it? But hey, that's just a story you'll never hear anywhere else. Yes. So, yes, it'll no doubt become a free speech issue. But one has to sort of say, well, you know, these people do get an awful lot of coverage, don't they? They have 5 MPs, and basically, if you count Richard Tice as well, they're never off GB News. You might as well just call GB News Reform News. Realistically, that's how that one goes. I'm astounded that that's allowed to go on. Absolutely blows me away. Can you imagine if Keir Starmer was given a 2-hour slot once a week on Sky News to just broadcast whatever he wanted? People would be up in arms about it for obviously sensible reasons. And yet, GB News just blithely walks its way through it. It's not an only GB News thing, of course. It's a generic problem. You know, let's talk about, for example, John Ashworth. Now, John Ashworth, until recently, was a Labour MP, and then he stopped being a Labour MP because of that messy thing called democracy, whereby people didn't want him. So he immediately, well, not immediately, obviously, it was about 5 minutes, simply joined Labour Together as their think tank. And instead of being on our TV screens quite a lot, he's now on our TV screens all the time, because that's the way it works. For the last 20 years, I've been reading articles about how dreadful it is with the revolving door between media, think tanks, and Parliament. And these are people that just slip between those 3 things all the time. And it's always the same people, like John Ashworth. Yeah? Well, you lost, mate, as an MP, and yet magically here he is, still in the centre of government, making policy, a bit like Nigel Farage, still on our screens, decrying, well, the fact that we're not libertarian enough, yeah? That's the issue. Of course, I mean, if you think about other things as well that have happened in the past as well, which are just stunning. You may remember Rachel Johnson, who interviewed her dad about her brother Boris Johnson, yeah? So, think about that in terms of nepotism, yeah? Why did Rachel Johnson get that LBC gig? I don't know. Maybe she's a very, very accomplished media operator in her own right. Yeah. But, I mean, how? How can we have media rules in this country where this is allowed? And, of course, not to let Ed Balls off the hook, of course, interviewing his wife about Labour Party policy. Brilliant. Yeah, this stuff is farcical, and yet, magically, it's within the rules. Because, of course, the way that this is presented is, it's a free speech issue, you know? If Nigel Farage, just needs to be able to say things, doesn't he? It's a free speech issue. No, it isn't. It isn't. You get all of these now ex-Conservative MPs, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, okay, who will go on and talk about media elites, the people that control everything. And what he means by that is Gary Lineker, yeah, who, as far as I'm aware, doesn't ever interview his wife or his son or his dog, and indeed it has no operational capacity in real terms within the BBC, does he? No, but he's a media elite, says the man who lives in a castle, yeah? He actually had the audacity to call John Major a member of the elite, yeah, because he's a dangerous punk rock outsider, isn't he, eh? Jeez. And it doesn't realistically stop there, okay? Because don't forget, it's not just about the MPs. It's about all of those other characters as well. And, one of my personal favourites will be Emily Carver. I love the way GB News allows both sides of the debate to be heard and picks stories that traditional mainstream media simply wouldn't think to or would shy away from. Yes, like the way that you need to vote for libertarian conservatives or reform, but preferably reform, because that's what GB News is set up for. And what's her background? Oh, it's the think tanks, isn't it? And she often would go on, right, okay, as a guest before she got her husband and slot, whatever it is that she's got, right? Don't forget she's actually married now to GB News presenter, yeah? But before that, of course, she was in the right-wing think tank, or at least about two of them anyway. And she would go on as a commentator. And I often used to I've commented on this in the past. In what capacity was she being interviewed? Was she just a member of the public, or was she representing Policy Exchange or whoever she was working for at the time? And it was never properly explained. But now she's a GB News presenter. Oh, does she still represent those interests in some way? Why aren't we told? And the answer is because that is the system and it will not change. I do not believe that the Labour Party will actually bring any of this stuff in, because don't forget, Keir Starmer was more than happy to have a quiet meeting with Rupert Murdoch before the election, and very quietly before the election, the Sun newspaper said it might be an idea just for a change to vote Labour. Quelle surprise. But of course Rupert Murdoch, thank God, has no editorial control. A bit like Paul Marshall that owns, well, now The Spectator as well as GB News. I'm sure he'll have no editorial control. Yes, it's no wonder Andrew Neil is leaving after their little spat with GB News. It's a huge problem because it's a tiny number of people in the revolving door, and all you get is one opinion. Okay, Ed Balls and all the rest of them may well try to persuade you that they are in some way representatives of a different point of view, but they're not. It's just one point of view. It has nuanced changes, if you like. Ed Balls is generically slightly more socially liberal than the rest of them. Ooh, let's highlight that. No, let's not. Let's talk about the intrinsic problem of the British state simply acting and using the media in whatever form it comes, and it includes the BBC, as a massive propaganda machine, which does not allow dissenting voices, Emily Carver. Yeah. Traditional mainstream media simply wouldn't think to or would shy away from. Yeah, we can't really get that from GB News or Talk TV or the Daily Mail or the Daily Telegraph or any of it. Yeah, maybe every once in a while you get a slightly dissenting voice on Channel 4, maybe. But it's farcical and it needs to change, and it won't. And it tells you everything you need to know about the British state, because it is the British state. It isn't magically separated from it. Anyway, do enjoy. Have a lovely Friday. Gosh, I've got such a busy day today. Enjoy.